The Senate Bill 5. I'm just going to pull out one thing here on this. And I'm going to give you the facts. I am going to give you the figures. I work for a company where full-time employees are given 5 sick days a year. I have worked for this company going on 17 years. I don't believe in those 17 years I have ever taken off more than 1 day as sick in a given year. And I had the flu, or I had, I had a bad cough, or whatever. But about 1 day. I tend to think of myself as fairly healthy. I would imagine that you tend to think of yourself as very healthy. You may be one of these people that go out and you exercise, and man, you're all about that healthy lifestyle. I mean, I like to walk. I try to eat fairly healthy. Try to stay away from fried foods most of the week. Yeah, maybe on the weekend I'll reward myself with some chicken wings. I eat a lot of fruit, like vegetables. But the Senate Bill 5, as far as benefits, for example, as part of this, it limits teachers to 10 days of sick leave per year. 10 days. Why are teachers so unhealthy? Why do you need more than 10 sick days? I know it's probably rolling over, and you're accumulating it. I understand that. You get some Jack and some Guinness for that, some greenbacks at the end of everything. So I know it's deferred pay, so to speak. But why would you need more than 10 sick days? All right. Are you ready for this? Teachers, are you ready for the hard truth? The cold facts coming from the big one today. Annually, there are 260 work days. For me, for you, if you're not a teacher. However, teachers work about 183 days. So you already work only 70% of the time others work. And you need more than 10 sick days. Don't get it. Really don't get that. That's how foolish some of these arguments tend to be when it comes to this Senate Bill 5. I mean, you don't need more than 10 sick days, and if you do, you need to be in hospice. I mean, my goodness. Foolish arguments. And let me throw something else on the table this morning.
This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Mark Amazon On Demand.
Mark Amazon, 700 WLW. So much talk and so much in the news about Senate Bill 5 and Issue 2. And a couple weeks ago, there was a very controversial and divisive ad involving one Marlene Quinn. And we had the folks from We Are Ohio on. And now the folks from the other side get a chance for a rebuttal. And it's an old friend, former city councilman Jeff Birding. And Jeff, can we introduce you? Are you officially with Building a Better Ohio, or just a proponent of Issue 2?
Building a Better Ohio is fine. I'm just a Cincinnati City Council member who knows firsthand that it's awfully tough to balance our budgets during these tough economic times.
No, wait, you just said you're a City Council member. You're not. You quit.
Former. I said former.
Oh, all right. I was making sure. I'm just making sure. All right, so look, I've had you on many times when you were on City Council, and in my mind, you've always been an open-minded politician. You don't play party games. You kind of vote your heart and you vote your conscience. So what made you throw your support behind Issue 2?
Well, if you remember, Mark, I was endorsed by the Democratic Party my first 2 elections, and then in my last election, I lost the endorsement because I would not join Mayor Mallory in laying off police and fire. I believe police and fire when they say the community is less safe when we're laying off our youngest and best-trained officers. So when I went to the unions as their ally afterwards and said, hey, listen, help us balance this $50 million deficit, I was pretty surprised and disappointed when they said, look, you could either raise taxes on the working families in our community, or you can lay off those young officers. And I thought there just has to be a better approach. And so when I saw the legislation up in Columbus, I went in favor to testify to say we need ways to balance our budgets in these tough economic times without laying off police, fire, teachers, and without raising taxes. And that's what Issue 2 does.
Jeff, I like a lot that's in Senate Bill 5. Merit raises as opposed to step raises, higher insurance premiums, which makes sense. I absolutely despise, whether it's with teachers, police, or fire, the whole concept of last in, first out. It's ridiculous. It gets rid of the fresh blood and the movers and the shakers and the people that have a future. But does anybody truly understand every little thing that's in SB 5? Because there's a lot of stuff crammed in there.
Well, I think I understand it pretty well, and I think that some of the leaders in the legislature who passed it do. The fact is, I think in any comprehensive legislation, there's always going to be pieces of it that some people don't like. But I can tell you that every newspaper that's taken a position on this issue all across Ohio, including in union-friendly Cleveland, have all urged the yes vote. In urging the yes vote, there have been some newspapers that have said it's imperfect legislation. But they've said that we have to break from a status quo that's bankrupting our cities and our state, and we need to have a way for our elected officials who people elect, voters elect, to be responsible for the tax dollars. They need to have a way to get our costs under control of these contracts that just aren't sustainable anymore. And we need to be able to do that without raising taxes and without laying off police and fire.
Well, and the nut of it is there are a lot of folks that feel like this will cause fire and police to be laid off. Now, my understanding of it is you'll just have different people. In other words, a 20-year veteran may not be safe. If somebody who's in their third year or fresh out of the academy can do the job better, they may stay and someone else may go. But is it your understanding that the net numbers, police and fire, would not diminish in the least?
Well, let's look at Wisconsin, which has gone through something similar. They passed legislation, as you know, very hard battle up in Wisconsin where the unions were challenging the governor. The legislature passed it, and we've had about 6 months now for that legislation to take effect. And in school districts all over Wisconsin, they've gone from budget deficits and layoffs of teachers. So now they're bringing back the teachers. They have surpluses. They have smaller class sizes. There's an article in, I think it was the Washington Post this week, that talked about it. Mark, I believe what you'll see is very different from the status quo. The status quo in our state, people are familiar with. Small towns and big cities are all laying off police, all laying off fire, all laying off teachers because the citizens can't afford higher taxes and the governments are out of money. That's the status quo. Police and fire are getting laid off. I think what you'll see once Issue 2 is approved is the same as Wisconsin, that we'll be able to get our labor costs under control by asking that public employees to pay 15% towards their health insurance, which is still less than on average. In the private sector, we pay 31%. Asking them to pay 10% of a lifetime guaranteed pension, which is far beyond what most people get anymore. The savings from those two provisions, plus getting rid of the step increases, the guaranteed pay raises just for showing up for work, has been estimated by the State Employment Relations Board and the Department of Administrative Services have looked at all the contracts in the state of Ohio, all the union contracts with the government, and have estimated that it will produce over $1 billion a year in savings. In Wisconsin, it's been $400 million in savings just in the public schools. With those savings, we can keep police and fire on the job. I mean, I think and this is such a critical element because the other side is running these ads that have been rated by the news media is untrue. I think they sell the public short because I think the public's smarter than this. Well, ask someone, what is a bigger threat to your public safety? What's a bigger threat to your public safety? Is it the police officer and the firefighter paying 10% for their pension and 15% for their health insurance, or is it that firehouse down the street that's empty because the city had to lay off those firefighters because they ran out of money?
Well, and I
think the public gets it. They're smarter than that.
But let's talk about the public for a second, because frankly, I was disappointed when you talk about untrue ads. The way poor old Marlene Quinn's image was used to support Issue 2 after she had come out against Issue 2, against her will and against her wishes. What did you think about that ad? I didn't like the ad, Jeff.
Well, I think that they could have done a better job on the campaign.
Was that necessary? I think the facts stand on their own, and I get once somebody enters the political arena, you've got the right to use their picture, but...
That's right. Listen, I just said I think they could have done a better job presenting the facts. But I do want to say this, Mark. The Akron Beacon Journal, which again from union-friendly Northeast Ohio, said that the ad, while uncomfortable with the way they used her, did take the key message of this campaign and put it out there in a straightforward way. The Vote No side says, if you care about public safety, vote no. That's what obviously Mrs. Quinn said.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, if you care about public safety, you really should vote yes, because the biggest threat to public safety is empty firehouses because the city's laid off all the firefighters because we ran out of money. And that is happening all over the state. The Columbus Dispatch has said in its editorial endorsing a yes vote on issue 2 that the other side, the Vote No side, is running an, quote, intellectually dishonest campaign. The Plain Dealer has said the no on issue 2 campaign lacks credibility. They have found their ads to be completely false. And I will say, the ad with Mrs. Quinn certainly is uncomfortable and maybe was the wrong way to go about it. I'm not going to debate that. But I will say on the merits of the argument, the news media have said that ad is accurate, that our ads are accurate.
Yep.
It should have been done in a better way. But again, I'll just say, I think voters are used to political ads that make people feel uncomfortable. And again, I'm not going to defend it. But I don't think people should punish themselves by voting against their economic interests as a result. I think this is a very clear case where the voters know it's in the best interest of their pocketbook, and that's to give local governments the tools to balance their budget without raising taxes on them and without firing police and firing teachers because they're out of money.
But the fact of the matter is, Jeff Birding, as we talk about issue 2 and other issues in the city, as I spoke to a lot of people when that ad came out, you've got a lot of fence sitters. I mean, you've got a lot of people that are police, fire, and union that have gone one way, and a lot of folks that are Tea Party that are leaning another way. But there is a distinct group that doesn't have a dog in the hunt, so to speak, and they saw that ad. And you're right. I mean, I listened to it 100 times. The facts are indisputable, but the fact is you can mention anything that any newspaper editorializes, but that message resonated with a lot of people as dirty politics, and I think cost some votes.
And it may have. Again, I'm just a former city council member who's standing up for the taxpayers, and that's why I got involved in this, because, again, I know that we need a new approach in the state that doesn't raise taxes and doesn't lay off police and fire.
I heard you're going to run again. I heard you're going to run again. Is that true?
No, it's
never.
Look, in the Democratic Party, if you take on the unions, your political career is over. So I'm not doing this for my political future. I'm doing this for the future of my kids and yours and the voters of this state who deserve to get good services for their tax dollars. And issue 2 allows us to maintain good services without raising taxes. And I think we need to have a new approach. The status quo in the state is not working. Businesses continue to leave. We have one of the highest tax rates in the nation in Ohio. We're losing our population. We're losing our tax base. Our governments are broke. Our people are hurting. The answer is not raising taxes. And the Vote No side is defending a status quo that's terribly unfair. There was a study done by the Ohio Business Roundtable that representing the people that are generating the tax revenue in this state and the jobs in this state, and they looked at it, and they found that public employees in this state earn about 43% more, primarily on the benefit side. To be fair, the wages are just a little bit higher.
Almost even.
But the benefits in terms of pensions and health care and whatnot, leave policies. In Cincinnati, our retirees are going to cash in $93 million in cashed-in leave. That kind of stuff doesn't happen in the private sector. But anyway, 43% higher. I just fundamentally think it's unfair. It is unfair to the 93% of the working public in this state who don't work for government unions. I think it's unfair to charge them higher taxes to give the 7% who work for government a deal that's 43% better. That's just not fair. And, the politicians that are out there saying vote no, they're doing that because that's in their economic interest. They want the endorsements from the unions. They want the contributions from the unions. And they want their political future to be protected. How about the futures and the economic interests of the taxpayers of this state who don't work for government unions? When I swore the oath, Mark, I swore to represent all the taxpayers, not just the ones that worked for the city, not just the ones that were members of the union. If the politicians fought as hard for the 93% who work in the private sector as they do for the 7% that work for the unions that endorse their campaigns, this state would be in a better economic position, and I think the taxpayers know it.
All right, Jeff, before we let you go, I want to turn your attention towards city council, where you were a former city councilman. How closely are you paying attention to your peeps running for council?
Just a little bit. Obviously, I've been traveling the state a little bit on issue 2, but I pay attention. A lot of those folks are still my good friends.
All right, so let's handicap the race a little bit. The two hot names of guys that certainly are no stranger to local politics, Mike Allen, Christopher Smitherman, in or out? Smitherman, Mike Allen.
I think they're both out. I think they're both obviously controversial figures in different ways. Certainly, Chris Smitherman's a very divisive figure, has said some really crazy things in his career that maybe helped him at the NAACP that certainly aren't going to help move this community forward and going to help bring in jobs to the community. I just think that people have seen enough shenanigans and enough lack of results, enough grandstanding at City Hall that they don't want to add to that. As it relates to Mike, I like Mike. I just think that he's going to have a tough time.
Well, people have long memories. Which incumbents are in the greatest danger of not coming back?
Well, I think that Lori Quinlivan would be in a lot of danger. She got an awful lot of votes in Mount Lookout and Hyde Park, Mount Washington, from largely Republican voters. Now she's down at City Hall wanting to supersize council salaries, council terms, wants to downsize the police department, the fire department, wants to raise property taxes. She introduced a proposal to have meatless Mondays to make it illegal to serve meat in the city of Cincinnati on Mondays.
That was a good one.
I don't think those are the kind of common sense proposals that people are going to support.
What about the statue contest? That was good. I mean,
and that's right. She wanted the statue.
Don't forget the statue contest.
I mean, I just I just think that she's turned out to be a lot more liberal and way political, and I just think that she'll have a hard time getting votes that she earned 2 years ago.
You know, we used to have you on when you were on council, and Chris Bortz quite a bit, and Leslie Giz, and Amy Murray, and others, and while all had issues with the mayor, nobody was quite as vocal as Jeff Birding of the council people toward our mayor. Now that you've been off council for a couple of months, how's your relationship with Mayor Mallory? Has it improved at all?
I've not had one word with them since I left City Hall, and that's probably a good thing. I'm certainly not a fan of the mayor's. I think a lot of our problems in this city are the result of his failed leadership. And he's more interested in traveling around the world, often at taxpayer expense. You know, being on talk shows, being a funny guy, suing the city to keep his car.
Yes.
It just shows terrible priorities and a real lack of leadership. And the sooner he's gone, the better Cincinnati will be.
All right, Jeff Birding, we appreciate having you on again, and maybe we'll have you on election night or something like that to handicap some stuff. You'd be good at that.
Mark, I'm always happy to talk to you. Obviously, I care passionately about the city. I want to make our city and state better, but sometimes you have to be a whistleblower and call people out for when they're doing wrong by the voters.
All right, Jeff Birding, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Mark.
All right,
you too.
That is Jeff Birding, Building a Better Ohio, former city council member. Interesting comments on Christopher Smitherman and Mike Allen. His thought that neither one gets in and that Lori Quinlivan's in some jeopardy. We'll continue with more. Mark Amazon, 700 WLW.